All right, so it is 1:30, 1:31. Okay, so lots to talk about, little time, so I'm going to get right to it. My name is Stoica. I'm a product engineer on the .NET runtime team at Esri, and I am also a part of the Example Apps team, which some of you might have seen in the plenary this morning. So before I go into the app, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the team. Okay. We are a new group, a new effort that got started in the beginning of 2016, and what we're doing is we're building apps with the runtime SDKs to help you guys, the developer, get started. See, we have samples, we have documentation, we have guides, we have workflows, we have all of that, and then we have apps like Collector and Navigator. There are, black boxes. And how do you guys get from the samples to apps like Collector and Navigator? Well, that's what we're here to do. We're here to help you guys out by providing you apps like Collector and Navigator, except they're open source. So you can take them apart, you can look at the code, you can, they're customizable, so you can just use them as they are, put your own data, make some changes, or you can just take them apart, take pieces out of them and use them, like the routing, like the locators, like all of that. And I will show you some of that in a minute. We currently have .NET and Android coverage. We are planning on adding iOS in the near future as soon as we find somebody to join us. What we have so far, you've seen in the plenary the EMU app and the indoor navigation. We also have for Android Maps app, which is your organization's first app. It's just an app that has several maps in it, and you can switch back and forth, and you can log in. The code is out there, you can take a look at it, and a nearby app. We are also working this year on an offline map book, both for Android and for .NET. Again, in the plenary, Divesh did the presentation, the WPF app that used offline mobile map packages. That's an app that will be open sourced and available on GitHub in a couple of months, I want to say. And also, we will have a data collector for Android and Maps app for .NET, and that will be on all platforms. And by that I mean Xamarin, UWP, WPF, everything that's covered under the .NET umbrella. Okay, where to find these example apps? They are under featured apps on the .NET, on the developer side. So you go on the developer side, you go under either .NET or Android, and you go down to featured apps. And let me see if I can show you that real quick. Whoa. Okay, don't go that way. That's going to be interesting. Let me see if I can pull up. Nope. Okay, so I got to exit the presentation, I think. All right, well, that's... Sorry, bear with me, guys, while I'm trying to figure out how to... Let's end the slideshow real quick so I can show you the... Okay, so on the .NET developer side, on the developer side, if you go /net or just go to .NET, and the example apps are over here, same for Android. Okay. Let's go back to the presentation. So let's talk about the indoor routing application. First thing I'm going to do is a demo of a more complete demo of the application, showing you how to route around the Esri campus. Okay, ignore that. So I've got my phone here. And when the app starts, the first thing it does is it looks to see if there's a new version of the mobile map package. If there is one, it downloads it. If there isn't one, it just opens the map. I'm going to spare you the time right now. You'll see that in a minute. So I've got the map open. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in to an area that I'm interested in. Let's look, for example, at building H over here. Zoom in a little more, and you can see the data start popping up, and you can also see the floor picker on the bottom left because the app is floor aware. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and what I want to do is look at floor 2. So when I look at floor 2, notice that only one building is left with rooms in it. The other ones get turned off. Why? Because those don't have a second floor. What we're doing here is we're using a definition query to query out the floor's data. So you see only the data that's pertinent to you at that time. And you move over, and since there's only one floor, there's no floor picker over here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my home location, which since Sandy demoed the app earlier, that's her office. And if I want to go ahead and route to that, I'm going to go ahead and hit route. Let's go ahead and search for a place first. So I'm going to go ahead and do H2 and conference room, and I found it, and I can route to it. Now, what if I don't want to search? What if I'm just looking at the map right here and I say, well, I just want to go to this conference room. Just tap on it, and the conference room gets selected, hit route to go to it, and I'm going to go ahead and hit route, and it routes me to that location. And since this is on the second floor, you can see that it takes you up the stairs and to the conference room. Now, one other thing that this app does is it allows you to keep searching for things even when you're in route mode. A lot of navigation apps don't allow you that. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to see where the library is, because I want to see if I have time to swing by the library to drop off a book. So hit that. I found the library. It's right over here. Notice that I'm still in routing mode. The routing is still showing up. Oh, look, it's actually on my way, so I can swing by and drop off the book. One last thing to show you real quick, setting a home location. You go into settings, tap the home location, and you start typing your location. And the locator, it's actually a composite locator that's made to use both room data and employee data. So if you start typing, notice you see rooms, G1010, but what if I'm looking for a person? Now I'm seeing the people, so the employees. So it's a composite locator, very easy to make in Pro. All right, so let's go back to the presentation real quick. All right, so how many of you right now are thinking, that was great, but I don't work for Esri. What good does that do me, right? Okay, no worries. The app is fully customizable. You can take it and you can do whatever you want with it. Author your own data, export it to a mobile map package, change the app settings, and you're done. You have your own app. So let's make a Palm Springs map. What do you say? I'm going to go ahead and switch real quick, exit this, and switch real quick to ArcGIS Pro, where I have, with the help of my dear colleague Mike, who helped me put this together, a nice Palm Springs map. Recognize the room we're in right now, Oasis 3, somewhere over here. All right, so what do I have in the map? I have floor plan lines that are practically the walls of the building. I have interior spaces, which are the rooms, and I have a network. Okay, how was all of this created, right? It didn't come from nowhere. We're helping you with that also. We have a set of tools that our professional services group created to allow you to take your CAD data, a lot of you have CAD building data for your buildings, and convert it to GIS. There's a lot of documentation here, nice set of tools on how to do that. You can even convert it into 3D data. This app is 2D, but you can go both ways. A lot of information about how to convert your data, how to create your indoor network, how to style your campus layers, and all of that. The link for that is, let me go back into the presentation. So I've created just a quick tiny URL for you guys if you want to write that down. It's also in the documentation for my app, So if you go into the wiki for the app into the GitHub, you can find the link, but also create a tiny URL for that. Okay, so you've got your data. It's in the map. Now what? You will symbolize your layers like you've seen in the map. You create locators, and I'll show you in a second. Create a base map if you want your map to be fully offline, if you want your app to be fully offline. If you don't, it's okay. You can just use ArcGIS Online base map. You don't need to do it fully offline. You create your mobile map package, and you upload it to Portal. And the rest of it, the app takes care of it. So let's take a look at that real quick. I'm gonna go back into Pro real quick, and I'm gonna go under geoprocessing, and I'm gonna say, let's look for Locator. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick, I just can't go that way. Pick Create Address Locator. Now, in this case, all I have is rooms. So I'm going to create one locator, right? In the case of the Esri campus, I had two locators that I needed, one for offices, one for people. Say you have multiple data types that you want people to search for, say offices and names of people, and maybe secondary uses for the buildings or everything. You can create a bunch of locators and put them all in one composite locator. So inside the locator, I'm going to pick the style as a single field locator, since this is not an address, it's just a single field. I want to look for the description of the room. And I'm going to give it the reference data as the building interior spaces. And then I'm going to pick for the key field. As soon as it catches up with me, I'm going to pick the, where is it? Description. Because I know that that's the field that I'm looking for from my data. And I'm going to hit run, and that's going to create my locator. I already have a locator created, so I'll just go ahead and show it to you guys. If you go here in project under locator, you see the Palm Springs locator. Okay. The one thing that I forgot to mention real quick, you want to say enable suggestions. And that's going to give you the nice drop down of auto suggestions that you saw in the app. Okay, you've got the locator, you've got the map, you've got the transportation network, you've got everything you need. Next step is to create the mobile map package. So back into geoprocessing, go back and say, create mobile map package. Now, what goes into mobile map package? In this case, one map. Earlier in the plenary, you saw multiple maps, but in this case, we only need one. So you'll put your map, you tell it where to save it. And one thing you want to do, if you're going to make this mobile map package multiple times, and you probably will as you get your data ready, overwrite it, because you can update the file in Portal, so you don't end up with 15,000 mobile map packages that you don't know, backup and backup of one and backup of two. So you can overwrite it, and then you get the same ID, Portal ID, that you can use in your app. You pick your locator, the one that you created. You can set your area of interest to be the current extent. Wow, this is sensitive. And that's it. And you hit run, and it creates a mobile map package. Now, I've already created it, and I've uploaded, so it is right here. Sitting in Portal. You want to share it, of course, depending on, this app is not configured right now to work with authentication. Your mobile map package needs to be public. You can always add that, and we have samples on how to do that. So you want to make sure that your mobile map package is public. Okay, so now how do we get from here to putting it in the app? Let me go back to this, and we're done with the phone. Okay, so inside the app, there's an app settings file where I'm storing the settings for this particular application. Now, what I'm doing is I'm creating an XML file where I'm storing all of the settings. Why XML? Because it's probably the easiest way to do it and have it cross-platform, right? This is a Xamarin iOS app, but I want to later on make a Xamarin Android app and a Xamarin UWP app, and they all know XML. If I had stored all these settings in iOS, then I would have had to create a whole new workflow to store the settings for Android, etc. So this creates, it uses XML serializer to create a settings file, and I can show that to you in just a second. So what do I have here? I have a portal item ID, which is for the mobile map package that I just showed you. I have the name of the mobile map package, the rooms layer, index layer, and the floor plan lines index layer. This is important because the app needs to know which layers it needs to toggle on and off when you're going between floors, right? So giving it the index, and these may vary. You might have 20 layers in your map, but you want to specify which are the ones that you want to turn on and off. The column name for the floor. So the app knows where to pick up the floor. You might have a building with 15 floors, right? It needs to create that floor picker. Whether to use online base maps or not. If you don't, then you might want to put your own base map, otherwise your app is going to look a little empty. Locator fields, this is very important because this is what the locator is going to search based on. So when we created the locator, you saw that we put that description field. In this case, for the Esri campus one, I was showing you, we have two fields because you're looking based on the name of the office and also the name of the employee. Fields for the contact card, the little contact card that popped at the bottom. Let me show you real quick what I'm talking about. Clear the route. Let's look at an office. Like that. The contact card at the bottom, that's where those come from. So you specify which field that information comes from. You also have initial viewpoint coordinates, so you can specify where to zoom into. The minimum zoom level for the rooms layer. Depending on your map, you might want the layers to turn on sooner or later, the rooms layer, right? So that specifies that. You're also specifying the minimum and maximum scale of the map, and a couple of other fields over here if you want location services enabled, if you prefer elevator, etc. So all you have to do is, I know there are a few settings, but you change these settings. So over here, I have the Palm Spring version. Okay, I've got the new ID, the name, the description. I've put in the coordinates. In this case, I want them to show up immediately. I want the rooms to just show up immediately. And you'll see why, because the building is not that big. So if I don't show the rooms, it's just going to kind of look empty. So let's go ahead and see that in action. So I have it saved there, and I'm going to hit run. Let me go to the app settings file so you guys can actually see it. Okay, while this is building, and it's going to start in the simulator real quick, what I want to talk to you a little bit about is the structure of the application. So what I have, if you look on the left side, is an indoor routing and an indoor routing iOS. When you build Xamarin apps, and I don't know how many of you are familiar here with Xamarin, but when you build Xamarin apps, it gives you a place to put your shared code, which would be all your code that you want to share with your Android app. And then a place where you put your UI code. The UI code goes into the indoor routing.ios, and your shared code goes into the indoor routing. So in the indoor routing, this is where I have all of my view models. This is where I'm doing all of the map logic. In the iOS, this is where I have all of my UI logic. This is where I've got my controllers. I've got a download controller, a map view controller, a route controller for all the different functionality, all the different screens. And I actually even have a storyboard. If you're familiar with working with iOS, it even has a storyboard where you can see all of my different UIs. How's this going? Is it still building? All right. So here is the app with the Palm Springs data in it that we've just created, and I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in, and this is a little more cumbersome on the simulator, but you can see the rooms click on Ventura, I want to route to it. I'm going to pick a location. Let's say I want to go from the lobby. I hit route and I get the route. Let me zoom out a little bit so you guys can see it. And so it's the same functionality, no floor picker because we only have one floor. Same thing, I can set my own location. I can use location services. If location services is a little tricky indoors, right? It works if you have an indoor positioning system in your building. Otherwise, depends on how much concrete your walls have, etc. You know, if you've got a campus with one story, you might actually get an accurate location. If you got a multiple story building, it's not going to work unless you have indoor positioning. Now, this app will work out of the box with Apple venues if you have it in your building. But anything else, any other third parties, and that's because it's, you know, it's an iOS app. Anything else, any other third parties, you'd have to do your research, figure out what you need to do to get it to work. Okay. Let's see where I am with my presentation here. Okay, so we've made the changes, we've run the app. Okay, so let's move back a little bit. And I guess I didn't really need to go to this, but let's talk a little bit about architecture. And the beauty of Xamarin is that it allows you to build for multiple platforms, right? And while reusing all of your business logic code. And I wanted to, I don't know, how many of you are familiar with Xamarin? Okay, a handful. All right, how many of you didn't know the difference between Xamarin Forms and using Xamarin Native? Okay, less. So, Xamarin is Microsoft's multi-platform programming environment, right? You, in theory, and I say in theory, I mean in practice too, but there's more to it. You can write an app once and you can deploy it to iOS, to Android, to Windows devices. There are two ways you can go about it. You can build Windows Forms, which is, Xamarin Forms, which is Microsoft's cross-platform, you build once, you deploy everywhere. The disadvantage with that is that you can't take advantage of native capabilities for devices. For example, in this app, I used the native download capabilities on the iOS. The download is done in the background. All I have to do is say, iOS, go download me this file, and it takes care of doing it in the background. If I navigate away from the app, it'll still download it. It works. The advantage is that you write the code only once, right? And it's done. Going native, Xamarin native, you also get to use the device's UI. So you saw the app, it looks like an iOS app, right? Because it is an iOS app. I mean, you saw I even have the storyboard, everything, the view controller, all of the UI. Going with Forms, you've got Windows, and Microsoft controls that you're putting in there. So your app might not look like an iOS app. It'll look the same on all of the different devices. Okay, so, all right. I'm gonna give you a set of resources, but before that, I want to point real quick to the survey. Please fill out the survey. And for resources, if you're new to Xamarin, Xamarin University is a very good resource. It costs money, but I personally think it's a very, very good place to start to learn. Also, developer.xamarin.com, very helpful. ArcGIS runtime for Xamarin. And if you've got any question, ask us on GeoNet. And if you've got any questions specifically about the app, by all means, either email me or I respond on Twitter also. And I got 5 minutes left, so I guess that's it. Any questions? Yes. Thank you, Sandy.
I noticed you were using Xamarin Studio, and Visual Studio is also an option. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between them? Could you just open this project in Visual Studio or not? And
you
how does that
can,
work?
and I have, yes. You can open it in Visual Studio, and it would work just as well. I prefer Xamarin Studio just for doing iOS work because it's faster. When you run it in simulator, it opens faster, so it's much quicker. But personally, I prefer Visual Studio over Xamarin Studio. But if you do just iOS, it's quicker. If you do iOS and Android, and especially, it doesn't work with Windows. So if you want to do all three and you want to touch on, Universal Windows platform, then you have to do it in Visual Studio because it doesn't work in Xamarin Studio.
And are you using Parallels or VMware, or what are you using?
I'm using Parallels, yes.
Okay, thanks.
And of course, I'm also using two devices. And Any other questions? I will be available afterwards. If you guys have any questions and you don't want to ask now, I'll be available. I'll be around. I'll be at the .NET booth podium over there. So just come by. I'd love to. Didn't really have much time to go into the code, but I'd love to show it to you. I've got the laptop and everything, so we can get into it. All right. Thanks so much, guys.